Welcome everyone to the first episode of the Holy Deep Divers. This is your home for all things hair metal, all things 80s arena glam rock. We got 3/5 of the crew here today. My name's Cadence. We got Justin from Camp Hinder. We got Donovan from Camp Gin Blossoms, and we're super happy to be recording the first episode. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Fantastic.
Super duper.
Yay.
So for today's episode, we thought we would put all of our favorite hair bands and all the ones we could think of on the tier list, and we're going to try and see if we can rank these. This is probably the most political thing I've ever done in my life, so we'll see if any of us are still friends after this. I'm looking forward to it. Guys, let's see what happens, right? All right, so first on the tier list, guys, we got Tesla.
For me, they're good. They're great people, great musicians, but as far as as what you're ranking as far as like what would characterize that era, yeah, they're like hard rock. It's almost like, Van Halen, where it's like, yeah, they're characterized as hair metal, but I mean, I guess what's your end goal here as far as, I mean, essential? I don't know.
I think we're gonna run into this with a lot of these bands. Like, do you consider them hair metal, or were they just kind of lumped in with everybody? And I think Tesla fits that category just because they were around at the same time. They had long hair, but they weren't in spandex and all that stuff. So I would put them I want to say good in the instance of this being hair metal, but that's not to say they're not great, because they're a great band. I mean,
yeah, because I would put it, then I'm almost breaking down to great as musicians, because they keep putting out stuff and have recorded more than like 4 albums.
Agreed.
And then they were, the 5-man acoustical jam was such a landmark album, but I wouldn't consider that like the version of like the Pearl Jam Unplugged, like that kind of like really sealed the deal and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think 5-man acoustical jam was almost the birth of all that shit. It was like they made it okay for all bands of that genre to go ahead and say, well, let's do an acoustic, and then MTV Unplugged, kind of really took off.
Yeah, but as far as like I'm gonna put them as good. That's my final answer.
I think I could agree with that.
Yeah, I'll second that.
I think, yeah, with Tesla, like, I mean, they're a fantastic band, but I think if you're giving someone like hair metal essentials, and if we're talking specifically hair metal, I don't think, it wouldn't be outlandish if they weren't one of the first bands that you got to. So I think that's a solid good right there. I can get with that.
Yeah.
Next up, gentlemen, White Lion.
For me, I would say essential.
I would as well. I mean, they're very dear to me.
Absolutely.
As far as like that era, because that came out in well, the first one being earlier, but Pride coming out in '87. Like I was a junior in high school, so it was like, hello, and it was the guitars.
Oh yeah,
and the look and the harmonies, and that's kind of my criteria. But yeah, I'll go with essential myself.
Yep.
Yeah, and they even had, they were just kind of they were everything about that. The songwriting was like that, but they wrote those hooky songs that fit in that genre. But there's no but to it. They were just essential.
Yeah, I mean, full package band, every aspect of what we look for in a good or great hair metal band. I mean, I agree, essential.
Yep.
Gentlemen, XYZ is next.
Yeah,
I
that's
would
tough.
I'll for me, I'm not as deep into the XYZ catalog, so I don't know. I'll let Donovan share his take first.
Yeah, let's start there.
Yeah, likewise. I was not really into them, but what's his face? Terry was the singer for Great White for a while, so there's some connection there that helps carry. I wouldn't call them overrated because it's not like they had amazing songs or that the public was all about them. So for me, it's kind of between. I never saw them live, so I couldn't say underrated either. So I might, for myself, put them in good again.
I think that's fair because, I mean, they never really got the huge commercial success to make them overrated for me. But at the same time, you know, I like you said, I haven't seen them or Terry solo live. I mean,
I'm gonna go with that too because I think about it. I do have their first album, and it's a really good album. They're not obviously not overrated because they weren't one of those bands that everybody blew up about, but they're not one of those like incredible bands where people like there's this buzz going, oh my god, you got to see him, you know. Bands like that are the ones that are kind of underrated for me, so I would put them in the good category.
Guys, I think these first three might have been the three easiest ones of this whole endeavor because like looking at this top row right now on my TV monitor, it's like we're about to get into some controversial stuff, I think. So Van Halen, I know what I think.
I want to hear yours then. You go first on this one.
I mean, essential. Like they're essential. I that for me at least, because I think they were the gateway band for so many. I mean, Eddie like pioneered so much of the guitar tone, even though, you know, it raises the question a lot of times, like, is Van Halen hair metal? Okay, maybe not, you know, or that's sort of a controversial thing. I think what they did for every guitar player for pretty much every other band on here, and what Eddie did for you know, the tone of so many of these bands, like I think, you know, Van Halen walked so a lot of these bands could run. And I think just because of you know, them being kind of the first ones to do so much of it, I'd put them at essential.
Oh man, that's a fucking damn good point.
Well, it's not just Eddie. I would go with, I mean, because they started 76-ish, 77, where who had a front man that was outlandish and dressed like that and took over any stage, and every 80s band was trying to do that. So yeah, essential.
Yeah.
They were, you know, it was the calling card. Hey, lead singer who's vibrant, taking over the stage. Guitarist who can play anything, great. Drummer who's either related to a member in the band or can play exactly as if he were the guitarist. And then a bass player who's doing all the harmonies. And, you know, I always think bass players kind of look really, really cool anyway.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go essential too, just because like you said, it wasn't, I mean, whether or not you would consider their music hair metal, their influence, everybody, you know, they were one of the first ones with the attitude, and they were the ones that everybody was copying. I mean, how many bands of this list, or just even the ones that aren't on this list, are like they tried to be David Lee Roth when they were starting out?
Yep, good call.
I think, yeah, essential. I don't think we can argue with that. Looks good to me. Quiet Riot.
Oh.
You
know, a side note on this real quick. I just watched this Randy Rhoads documentary on Amazon.
Now you're here. There's no way back. Is that the one?
I don't know. I think it just came out, but it was really good because like the first half of it is like all about Quiet Riot. So that was really, I mean, I knew he was in Quiet Riot, but it was really, really cool to watch and learn like some history about them too. Not, you know, there's very little about the Ozzy because he wasn't with Ozzy for very long, but it was really cool. It's almost a Quiet Riot documentary starting out. But anyways, that's recommended viewing if you haven't seen it yet.
Oh, I need to get on that because I only know about the one that came out a few years ago. That was
Now That You're Here Now That You're Here, You Can't. It's the lyric from the song. Now
Yeah,
That You're
yeah.
Here.
It's the one that was on. I think it came out on like Hulu or something. But the one that's
Yeah.
just about the drummer.
No, this is a brand new one about Randy Rhoads on Amazon Prime.
I got you. I need to get on that now. I mean, it's this one's interesting to me because, well, Donovan, it kind of is funny because we sort of the first time we met, like, and you know, actually talked was like at a event that Quiet Riot was playing. So I'm nostalgic for him just because of that. But like, you know, that aside, I mean, they sort of, for me, they fit into kind of two categories. There's one that's like they're kind of underrated because they only really have 2 songs people know, but there's a lot more to the catalog that should have gone mainstream or is, you know, at that quality in my opinion. But then there's a part of me too, it's like they're essential because, you know, Metal Health was the first #1 record sort of that genre.
So first heavy metal record to debut at #1.
Yeah. Donovan, man, what do you think? We met at a Quiet Riot show, so this is getting intense.
Man, because of those 2 points, I'm willing to split the difference. Because we're also considering 2 factions for me. One is like prime era when they came out, the impact they had, and then there's like after that initial 5-10 years, how much are they still doing? Blah blah blah, which they still are. So I'm going to put them with. I'm going to split the difference between underrated and essential, and just put it at great because it's Van Halen. It's a copy of a copy of a copy because it was that front man. It was that amazing. Well, even Carlos was really dang good, and you know, Rudy Sarzo being an amazing bass player. So I'd put it at great because we're trying to. If we were telling a bunch of people who never heard any of this music, we would have to say, you know what, this is probably ranks pretty high for you to understand the impact, but it's not like you have to get it from them. So I myself would put it at great as far as what they were in their impact.
I'm with that. Justin, that's not good. Do you put it great?
I'm with that.
There we go. All right, another big one up next, Whitesnake.
Man. Oh.
This one, I could see an argument for pretty much any category on here, which is the weird thing.
Whitesnake's a tough one because to me, they're more than just hair metal. I mean, look at the early shit, which was blues rock.
Exactly.
You know, borderline blues metal, if you will. You know, I mean, it's such a tough one. You know, they just kind of became hair metal when 87 came out. You know, and then for the next, really just slip of the tongue, those 2 records were really there when they would have been probably considered hair metal. So, I mean, I want to put them at essential just because I'm such a huge fan.
And the size of those hits were so big.
They were important.
Yeah.
I mean, the self-titled album was, you can't argue that was kind of like that's an important one for
they're not overrated. He's always had the most amazing musicians, the longevity of their career. You know, they're not underrated because every musician I know is like, yes, I love that guitarist when he had him. I love that guitarist when he had him. I love that guitarist.
Yeah, I mean, you can't deny fucking, you know, Whitesnake 87. You cannot deny the musicianship of John Sykes. The riffs, the tone. I mean, there's not a bad song on that album.
I mean, yeah, and it's just, you know, even David, like, you know, he's the forefront of the band, and he's one of probably the best voices, and, you know, I would say like technically one of the best vocalists. He's also, if you want to talk about longevity, he's kind of one of the few on this list that still can sing like that. Which I would say, I think that's honestly sort of important when I look at this stuff because, you know, being a fan that's sort of like only, you know, I mean, I wasn't even a thought yet when so many of these albums came out. It's like, sorry, I'm gonna call you guys out there, but it's like you know, if, for example, I feel like if I took one of my friends from Belmont or somewhere that had no prior knowledge of hair metal, if I took them to see Motley Crue right now and they saw that show that they've been doing this past summer, they'd be like, "What the hell is this?" Like,
Yes, absolutely.
why do you like this stuff? But I feel like if I took them to see Whitesnake or Tom Kiefer or Def Leppard or one of these bands that just still goes out there and sounds just as good as they did when they were in the prime, I feel like that's part of sort of keeping this kind of music alive. So I would, for that reason, with Coverdale, I'd say Essential.
Go for it.
Yeah.
All right.
Agreed.
That Nuno Betancourt, Extreme. I'm a diehard Nuno fan, but I want to hear what you guys have to say on this one, because this could go really a lot of ways.
Jesus. Speaking of musicianship.
Yeah. And they were technically, as everybody wanted to say, a carbon copy of Van Halen. They were reaching for every, and I was like, I learned to play guitar to Nuno. That's the first 3 albums. Like, that's all I learned how to play. And then a bunch of other bands. But I'll say this, as far as in the hair metal genre, for me, and this is not, you don't have to put in it, but I would even say overrated as far as like hair metal, because it's an overrating of the simplification of what they fit into.
Ooh,
that's smart.
That's deep.
That's smart.
That's
not
deep,
overrated
man.
as musicians, not overrated as songwriters, not overrated in any of that category. But if you were to take a stranger and go, you have to check out Extreme, that would be overrating them to me. Because like when people say hair metal, I like don't go, yeah, Extreme is the hair metal that you have to check out.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, and it would be a striking accord between good and overrated, only as categorizing a hair metal bit. Because I mean, even album sales were only because of More Than Words,
which isn't even a hair metal song.
Yeah, you can go into any thrift store, FYE, whatever, and find reams of porn graffiti and 3 sides every story in the return pile, in the whatever, because people bought it and didn't like it.
Yeah. They bought it because they heard More Than Words, and then they were like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
and also to kind of echo that, if somebody said, "Man, I want to check out some hair metal stuff, what would you recommend?" And somebody said, "Oh, Extreme," and the first thing they put on is like, "Get the Funk Out." They're like, "This really isn't hair metal."
Yes. Yes.
So that's another thing that they had, was they were just, their style was so broad and so expansive. I mean, like porno graffiti itself, you got Decadence Dance, which is just a barn burner, and then you have something like Get the Funk Out, which is somewhat of a completely different style. You have the slow acoustic ballad of More Than Words, and then later you have When I First Kissed You, which is almost like a lounge song.
Yeah.
So, and then you have Wholehearted, which kind of has a folky. You're like, what genre are they?
Right. And like even Van Halen and Whitesnake had done those things. Yeah. Loungy, roots rock, thumping 4 on the floor. So yeah, that's where I would put them at. Yeah, you put them where you want them, but that's just my 8 cents.
I like overrated. I think that's fair for this, because I can admit, or I can attest that my CD copy of 3 Sides did come from a store called Unique in Virginia, which is a thrift store that you find like crock pots at, and I got my Extreme CDs from there. So
and you can walk into any thrift store and find 2 other albums: Natalie Merchant, 10,000 Maniacs, every freaking time, and any Dave Matthews album.
and as a
so true.
As a rock band, I don't know if that's where they would want to fall. So I think that might. I think overrated is a solid take for that.
Yeah, and it's only because of what we're ranking them as essential, what you would have to do to get the genre.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I personally would put him as underrated, but that is sheerly on the fact of, you know, being overshadowed by everybody else and not getting like really what they deserve success wise just because of their musicianship, their songwriting. But I'll go with the overrated. You know,
well,
just
can you make it both? Can you put it like on the line of overrated and underrated?
Kind of right.
I'm serious, because I mean, they were both.
You know what?
Yeah,
I'm gonna
just make one that says rated.
Yeah. No, I was about to see it. Can I make a new? Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Oh no, this is just getting. Okay, there we go. That's okay. Oh shoot, it's gotta be.
You can leave it at overrated, and people will listen and they'll get the point. They'll understand.
I'll Photoshop it in later that it's kind of on the edge, but yeah.
You can blame me. I started it, but I love Nuno, so it's okay.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they're an amazing band, but I sort of get the point.
Oh yeah,
for both. This next one might destroy some friendships here because I'm a die-hard Bon Jovi fan of every era of the band, but I do sort of get that they only kind of had 4 hair metal records and then kind of did other things. So I'm really curious for you guys what the Bon Jovi opinion is. Donovan's gonna it's not gonna go good.
I'm gonna let Donovan start with that mad scientist laugh.
Oh yeah, because they were glamour boys. They were gorgeous at that time. They did everything, and even, you know, the metal studs and all that. I'm just gonna put them at great myself, because they made it cool to just have songs and not make it about just the guitar solo. But I wouldn't call them essential for myself.
Excellent point.
I can get with that because to me they are not an essential hair band, because my favorite Bon Jovi albums and my favorite Bon Jovi eras aren't the 80s stuff. And my favorite Bon Jovi album from the 80s is New Jersey, which is half of it's not hair metal. So
well, and if you think about it, really it's just the first 3, like the self-titled 7800 and Slippery When Wet were like really that kind of hair metal style. And then when hair metal was like at its apex, they completely switched and put out New Jersey, which is more of a, I mean, there's a couple songs on there that you could probably consider that could float in that hair metal category. Yeah. But it had more of an organic, almost like Tesla. Yeah. They just completely said, no, we're just a rock band. You know, we don't want to fall into that whirlpool of all those bands. We're gonna take a left turn here.
Exactly.
So I would put them at great as well. Not something that, you know, if you said, okay, this is your homework to really up on your hair metal in that genre, I wouldn't put Bon Jovi in there.
I think I'm really happy with that, because I was sort of thinking, like, if this was like my rock band, you know, tier list, or just if we had all sorts of genres on here, I'd put them essential. But I mean, it'd be hypocritical because my favorite Bon Jovi era is 2000 to 2008. So it's like that's like Donovan. It's so good. They had so many good. Dude,
I love that era too. But that's the point. Yeah,
exactly. It's like that's not, you know, not even hair metal, so or close. So, you know, so it's like I think great is a deserving spot for them. And this is going to be terrible because look, the logo's black and they got rid of the white background, so now it just doesn't show up on there. But
work your Photoshop magic.
I can do that later. We'll fix that later on. Bon Jovi's great.
Just draw it in there.
I'll do some like Comic Sans, just write it out on on Microsoft Paint later on. That'll be mine.
As they used to say, we'll fix it in the mix.
Yeah. Edit and post, boys.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm actually pretty happy because none of those opinions, you know, made me want to block you guys on Facebook after this, and I'm very happy about that. And I think this next one might be one that we can all agree on too. Cinderella.
I would say it's a toss up between great and good, kind of because of the same reasonings with Bon Jovi. Like, Night Songs was a great. It fit in that hair metal category, and then they turned around and did the same thing with Long Cold Winter, and it was like a blues rock album that had hair metal kind of somewhat sprinkled in. There weren't any flashy solos. So shit.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
defer to you on this totally, because that's the.
I'm gonna say good, and it's not to say they weren't great, but I'm gonna put them in the good category just because really it was just one album, and then they just switched gears to really kind of like wait a minute, and then even Heartbreak Station, you're like, these guys aren't hair metal, but even as if you were to say Night Songs is a hair metal album, you could also turn around and say it's a blues rock album. They just looked hair metal.
Yeah, much like the Tesla stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, initially I was gonna try and weasel them onto great for one reason, and that's the live show and the current live show with Tom Kiefer doing it. But I sort of I'm stepping down from that because it is just Tom Kiefer now. It's not like they're going fully onto Cinderella. And I do sort of the bands on this list that kind of still go out and tour and still do it really well kind of have like an edge for me of how much I like them, just because they're ones that I've been able to see and like hear the songs like they've intended to be played. But because of what you're saying is sort of similar to Tesla, I think it's probably they're about a Tesla tier band for me personally. So I'm cool with good if that's the consensus.
I can totally track with that. The whole the seeing them, they still tour live kind of thing. But yeah, so put them where you will.
I think for this ranking they're good. I think that's solid.
Sweet.
Next up is pretty much my hometown band. They're them and Firehouse. So neither one are from my hometown, but they're both within like an hour and a half. So I'll count it. But I'm curious this one's weird for me because there's that hometown pride, but at the same time,
let your bias sneak in here.
Yeah, man, I don't know. All right, Ship, let's see it. What's your kick statement?
I would put, oh Jesus, man. They're another one of those bands that it's kind of a gray area. Were they really hair metal? Did they really do the flashy stuff? Not really. But they had songs that fit in that genre. Me personally, I would put them at great just because I absolutely love that band. I've seen them live and they were just fantastic. I mean, they still play live. Steve Whiteman still sounds awesome. I watched their set from M3 this past summer and they were just firing on all cylinders, man. So I wouldn't put them essential just because there's other bands here. Like I said, if you gave somebody homework and said you have to check out these 5 to 10 hair metal bands, I wouldn't put Kicks on there, but I would absolutely put them in the great category.
Yep, sold. Do it.
Yep. If that's wait, Donovan, do you have something else, or was that?
Nope, that's it. That's like clear as day.
Easy.
Yeah. Speaking of Kicks, Cadence, did you check out that re-recording of Midnight Dynamite?
I didn't, and I'm gonna pull it up on YouTube right now so that I can.
It's on Spotify and all that. It's really good. It's that and Donovan, I don't know if you know about this, but they did like a, I guess 30th anniversary re-recording of the Midnight Dynamite album.
Was it relit? Is that what?
I think so, but it just shows you how well those songs can still hold up with like more modern production. And it's awesome.
Yeah, Harem Scarum did that on a 20th anniversary of their second album.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something to check out.
You guys are gonna need to fire whoever made this tier list, because I didn't put Skid Row on here. I just had like a terrible realization that Skid Row isn't on this list.
Well, once we get through here, we'll get with some honorable mentions.
Yeah,
I like it.
Some
I like
addendums.
Yeah, because I was just looking at this and I'm like, man, I just thought of another one that I should have mentioned the other day, but we can have an honorable mention list.
I like it. Well, we'll have to do a part 2 sometime with the other two guys that couldn't make it today or something. But
For sure.
All right, gentlemen. Next up's a band. I'm going to completely let you guys just take the reins on. I quite honestly don't know anything about them besides the biggest couple hits. So Dangerous Toys. I'm curious what you guys think.
This one's easy for me, but
Go for it.
well, all right. Overrated, like in every aspect. Like I can't stand them. And I'm sure they're great people. And what's his face touring the Red Dirt? What's his name?
Kevin Fowler.
Yeah, still does the Red Dirt touring. So good for him. But I thought
he wasn't an original member though, so I don't really factor that in.
So I mean, like, they were a copy of Guns N' Roses. The songs were not there. They were like, if you were to tell somebody this is what you need to see of how not to do hair metal, so overrated. Boom.
Shit,
for me.
You good with that?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, because I've always been a fan of them. I'll go with that. I'll go with that.
All right.
I mean, it's even possible for them to be underrated on this too.
I mean, that's what I was thinking was underrated, just because it's like, if I were to tell somebody, like, man, you should check them out, they're really good. But to, like, like you said, and to kind of go along with the extreme deal in the sense of what we're accomplishing here as far as hair metal goes, they would be probably overrated for that, because they were, another one of those, a lot more blues influence,
Mm-hmm.
Then you may even want to throw them at underrated, because they
certainly weren't
voice.
Pretty Boys.
Yeah, the voice was very gutter, it wasn't glam. It was hair metal, but it was like, we are dirty hair metal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's make them underrated, because, like I said, the people who love them.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who don't just don't. So that might be an underrating of it.
Yeah, let's make them the first one in the underrated category.
Okay, that sounds good. Fill out the tier list a little bit here. It's looking good so far, guys. This is all, I mean, nothing on here is jarring to me. It's great.
Yeah.
The next band is the reason why I know Mr. Donovan Palmer himself. So again, not gonna let the personal, events play into my ranking of bands, but I do love Striper, and I'm curious.
Another one I learned guitar on. Essential, no. Overrated, no. Underrated, I might even say underrated for myself, because there's the colorization of what they stand for and what they do, but they have not, with the exception of the little bit of Against the Law, which is my favorite album, ironically, they've stuck with, like, their guns, their hair, their metal. They scream, they harmonize, 4-piece ripping duo solos.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm almost underrated in that category.
I would say underrated, because they still tour heavy. They still sound great.
I would say underrated as well, just because people think Striper and they immediately think, oh God, it's Christian rock, blech, and it's like an immediate turnoff to them. But it's like, wait a minute, if you stop and listen to them, they're not, like, listen to their music, they're not fucking around.
Yeah, and they tell good stories.
Yeah. I mean, I watched. I've been meaning to tell you guys about this. There's this channel on YouTube called Metal School, and this guy does these little anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour just like biography on these bands. And he just did one on Striper last week, and I watched it, and I was just, a lot of this stuff I already knew, but there was some stuff and I was just like, oh my God, So I would absolutely put them underrated, just because most people just wouldn't give them a chance.
Yeah.
Knowing that, it's Christian rock, I don't want to hear songs about God, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. Just listen to the musicianship.
Yeah.
And
they had it from the get-go, from that first EP. It was like, this is real. And that, I think unanimity is also, everyone had different expectations. And it's just like Dangerous Toys. You either loved them or hated them.
I think with Striper, for me, like looking at this, this graphic here of all these bands on my laptop, it's like there's very, very few bands on here that are one of a kind, but they're one of them. And I love what they do. My church boy, I'm a church boy. My mom loves Striper. I love Striper. I think just because of them being probably, in my opinion, the only band on this list that's truly the only one that does what they do, at least out of these bands, and the fact that they kind of didn't get enough commercial attention, I think underrated would be my.
They fit in the hair metal category, but when it gets down to brass tacks, they really are one of a kind.
I like it. Underrated. Donovan, you good with that?
Yep.
And now we're back to bands that, Rat. I'm curious.
That one's pretty easy for me. What do you got, Justin?
I'm gonna say great, just because the songs, I mean, they kind of had and I think it boils down to like Piercy's voice. It was different. He wasn't like a screecher like a lot of the bands were, but the songs, and they just, when you hear a Rat song, it's a Rat song. You don't have to hear any of the lyrics or the singing yet. You hear a Rat song, you just hear the music, and that writing style of Warren and Robin. It's like, that's a Rat song. So, and I would put them in the great category. Not essential, but definitely in great for me.
Cadence.
Yeah. I'm going great because of I mean, they were one of the first hair metal bands that I heard on like radio when I was like my dad was driving me to school. So I feel like they're a gateway band because of their, you know what I mean though? It's like, because here's my thing. It's like they had like, two, in my opinion, I would say two like mega hits, like, Lay It Down, Round and Round. Like they had the two really big ones that got on MTV and got on on Headbangers Ball and stuff. And I feel like people that heard those and got into them, because all their other stuff, in my opinion, is kind of more like heavier, and there's it gets into more riffy territory and stuff. And I think their deep cuts on those two records are their best stuff. So I think
great
I think
riffs.
great. Yeah.
I mean, like today when I was like, anytime I fire up my guitar at sound check and it's in drop, the first riff I play is You're in Love. I mean, just memorable riffs. And to this day, I have a lot of my peers back home, like we play in cover bands and stuff, that would rather eat a bullet than play Round and Round again. But I'm like, no, we're playing it. We're playing it.
I mean, it's
every time that song comes on the radio, I don't care what mood I'm in, I crank it full blast and I wait for that solo, and I'm just like, yes. So
last thing I'll say about them is that I think we were talking about Extreme, and it's like, if somebody heard Extreme and heard More Than Words and then went to look into the other stuff, if they bought the record, they'd be like, what the heck is this? And gave it immediately back. I think if somebody bought Out of the Cellar because of Round and Round and heard the rest of the album, they'd be like, this freaking rocks. Like, this is the greatest thing ever. I think great for me.
Consistency. It's the consistency of people, of the uninitiated. Okay, you want that stuff? Rad is a great gateway because it's guitar riffs and attitude. Every single song.
Absolutely.
I think great.
Yep.
I remember when I saw the movie Rockstar, and he's given Mark Wahlberg that little talk at the end, and he's like, our fans will dissipate and they'll go away, and then now they're watching somebody like Rat or something, and I was sitting there in the theater and I went, I like Rat, shut up. Kiss my ass, man. Rat's awesome.
Rat is awesome. I mean, I've got the first 4 on vinyl. It's like 2 feet to my left, so I think anything lower than great would just be wrong for me personally. I think is that a good consensus for us?
That's my final answer.
All right, next up's another one that I need you guys to carry for me because I don't know hardly anything about Bang Tango.
Yeah, go ahead, because it's hard to define. I know exactly what I want to call them, but it's hard to define.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're another one of those. And I hope this isn't fucked. It's getting windy, so I don't know if it's messing with my audio over here, but they're another one of those, like, you listen to one song, you listen to like Someone Like You, and you're like, yeah, and then you get the next album and you hear Dancing on Coals or Dressed Up Vamp, and you're like, well, wait a minute, now there's like this borderline funk, spice thrown in there. So they toe the line a little bit, but I would put them at good.
Yeah, I can go good, and I can go with overrated as far as defining them. They were late to the game, 88, 89, and like they looked a little more like a gypsy band, and they played a bunch of different styles. It wouldn't sell a hair metal like us to go, oh no, that's a band that you would get hair metal if you listen to Bang Tango. You would not get it at all. So I'd go with good or overrated.
I'm happy with whatever you guys think, because like I said, they're not one that I really know much about.
Good was the first vote, so go with that.
Let's put it there.
All right, here's one that I do really like. I know a good bit about. Chip's Enough's Enough, all those guys. Troy. I like this one, and I'm a defender of this band.
Tory.
Is it not? I'm an idiot. Damn it. I'm gonna edit that out after this. That was embarrassing.
That's okay.
You get a pass.
I've seen them live twice. I think as a band they're great, but I don't know if they're necessarily hair metal, really.
Yeah, I wouldn't put them as essential, and no. I don't think I would call them great because it was just all over the place. But I would put them underrated because of the songwriting.
Yeah,
absolutely. I 100% agree on that. Because they are somebody, if somebody said, give me some hair metal essentials, I would give them all the top ones, but I would, I would have no doubt, no reservations telling somebody, you really should check out Enough's Enough. They just have great goddamn songs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Those first 2 albums, late to getting in, but fit all the criteria, and that's why they were kind of categorized that. So I would put it at that. Yeah.
I like underrated for them. That's always kind of been my take. Black and Blue.
I couldn't tell you a single Black and Blue song, so I do not have a dog in this fight.
Me either.
And I'm going to agree with you there. And I think they're just riding the name that Tommy Thayer, so I'm going to call them overrated, flat out.
Sure.
That was pretty easy. I think when you see a band like that get put on all these like M3 festival and
they're one of those rock. They're one of those side stage bands.
Yeah, it's like I don't really know who's still. I mean, let's be real here, guys. When's the last time you've been to a Monsters of Rock event or whatever, and just someone's been like, I'm so excited to see Black and Blue today. Like, no, I don't think that really happens. So
yeah,
I think you're right to say they're kind of just riding the coattails, and I think overrated is a good destination for them today.
I will. With that being said, I will go. Pull up my Spotify later and check out some of their stuff, just so I'm not like, I'm not like, oh, this guy didn't fucking know what he's talking about. Well, okay, I went back and listened. I
Yeah,
I didn't at the time, but a couple hours later, maybe I wanted to change my answer. I don't know.
I'll do the same probably. I think we'll do a little studying after this. Little, make sure we didn't misstep. And if it ends up that we're gonna have to put them at essential, I'll, like I said, fix that in post, and no one will ever know this happened. But all right, Heaven's Edge, another kind of more of the obscure side of it. We actually got a few of those coming up.
Man, for me, my personal take is I would put this at great because of the impact that first album had on me. I remember I'm one of those people, like, I can hear a song and it'll take me back to like the first time I heard it, or just core memories. And I remember when I got that first cassette, like, I wore it out. I remember I got it, and I remember going on a vacation with my parents. We went to like New Mexico and Colorado and all this stuff. And I remember just sitting in the back seat of my Walkman and listening to that tape over and over and over again. And to this day, I cannot listen to one single song off that album. I have to hear the whole thing, just because it was so impactful on me as a teenager. Just like that, like, it's just unreal, like how much I love that album, that band. Like, we did a short run earlier this year with Tantric, and Jaron, the bass player, also plays for Heaven's Edge. And like, I was just like quizzing him left and right, like, so tell me about this. And he's like, he was just playing it off like, yeah, that's cool. He's like, I'm in a band with him, so it's cool. I'm just like borderline fanboying on, to somebody who's like half my age. I'm like, no, but dude, tell me, it's like that band is just that that album would actually be a desert island CD for me. So I wouldn't put them at essential just because of the titans that are already there, but I would absolutely put them at great, like a very high great.
Yeah. And underrated. Like, I don't even know that much about them, but as far as look, style, hooks, even, I say this in all respect, shirtlessness,
and musicianship too.
Yeah, I mean, and clean shaven chests. But then it's like, oh dang,
yeah, you can listen to those just from a musician standpoint and go, wow, holy shit, these guys are just on all cylinders. And every song is just badass. Like, they have this song called Can't Catch Me. No. Yeah. I think that's it. But the drummer is doing double kick the whole time, and it's fast, and he's just the whole time. You're like, this guy's got his own cardio system going on back there.
I think they ride that line of either, like, do we put them in great or to put them in underrated?
Yeah, that's a tough one, but I'm gonna say great, but I'd be fine with underrated.
To me,
but I will say, if for any hair metal fan, that first album is definitely essential listening.
To me, they're kind of with Kicks, so I'd say great. For me, I think they fall about the same.
Okay.
About the same line. So I would say, just because they're kind of like you said, Justin. I mean, that first record, it's like with Kicks, would blow my fuse. Like, I think that album you need to hear. So I'd put them there personally.
Sounds
Donovan,
good.
Is that good with you?
Yep.
All right, bet. All right, I don't know anything about Tough, so
me neither.
As far as what they were, here's the deal: the lead singer of Tough started Metal Sludge,
Okay.
which is the giant gossip site started around the turn of the century, and it was everything. And he's just basically his own TMZ.
He's still running it, yeah.
Yeah, and he, kind of, I wouldn't say he picks fights, but he kind of does the whole Bravo channel where he's like, well, what did you think about this person saying this about you? And then the person going, they said that about me?
Yeah. He's very much a stirrer of the pot.
Yeah, and you can't, I know one of their songs, and it was the power ballad. But other than that, I'm like, overrated. Let's just not even discuss it anymore. Moving on.
Yeah. The one thing that they have for them that really truly shows their hair metal side is the spelling of the name.
Yeah.
They
were totally they were very rebellious in there. Well, this is what we're gonna do. We're TUFF.
Yeah. And which kind of reinforces the hair overrating of the hair metal. Like, oh yeah, we are hair metal. Look, we spelled our name this way.
It takes me back to my very first band in high school. We were called Psychotic, but we spelt it with a K instead of CH.
My first band was called Slick, SLIQ. So we will just move.
Yep. And then there was every high school had a band called Leviathan.
Yeah.
I think hearing that, it sounds like most people probably know them because their singer started a site like TMZ, pretty much solidifies overrated for me.
Yeah, I'm with that.
Gold.
Roll it. Now, next up is one that I think might fall the other way for me personally, as Trickster. I think it's okay. Here's the hard thing, though, is I don't know how much you really want to call some of their stuff hair metal, but it's like I think that the songwriting was not appreciated enough for this band.
I would agree with you, because I remember when I first heard them, I heard it was "Give It to Me Good." It's the first single, and I was just like, what is this? Is like way too cheesy. And then One in a Million, I was just like, it was almost a little too. They were hair metal, but it was almost a little too schmaltzy.
Yeah.
But when I go back and listen to it now, I'm like One in a Million. I absolutely love that song. I'm like, wait a minute, these guys. Wait a minute. Okay, let me go back. And I bought one of their recent albums. The name escapes me right now, but it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I'm like, oh wow, I need to go back and check this band out.
They're like Rat for me, because when I sorry, wait, would you have something else, Justin? Sorry, I meant to cut you off.
Well, I was just gonna say I would put them at underrated, simply for that fact. It's kind of like the Striper thing. It was just like the first song really just turned me off. But then when I went back and listened to it later, as with a different ear as an adult, like, and really appreciating the songwriting, I'm just like, okay, I get it. So I would put them at underrated.
Yeah, I like it.
At that, they were a boy band essentially.
Very true. Very true.
Underrated.
They were almost too pretty.
Yeah, my thing with them is I first ever heard about them when Steve Brown was filling in for Def Leppard on the 2018 tour, and it was kind of like with Rat, how we were talking about, like, okay, you hear Round and Round, you want to look more into the band or whatever and do more research. With them, with Trickster, I was like, oh, who's this guitarist? I looked into his band. I hear those first two songs and I'm like, iffy. It's like, okay, this is fine. But then I hear the deep cuts and I'm like, this is great. So I like underrated for them. If that's the consensus.
Yeah.
Dokken.
All right, this is easy for me. Essential, because I gotta pee. I'll be right back.
Well, I can't say I disagree.
I'm absolutely 100% on board with that, because Dokken is, to me, like White Lion. They're one of those bands that I still listen to with the same passion and the same just like love for that band. I've been listening to them since I was a child, and I don't think there's a single Dokken song that comes on and I go, oh God, not this one.
Yeah.
every song is just it has such a deep meaning. I don't want to say meaning, but just a deep love for me.
I think why I love Dokken so much is a lot of times with these bands, one thing I always kind of think about is just quality. And I think with Dokken, I think everything about them was just always high quality. It never felt like any of the records were phoned in. It never felt like, I mean, everything from the album artwork to how they dressed to the songwriting, it just always felt high quality to me. And that was kind of something that I respect. I feel like a lot of these bands, some of them sort of dipped off in the quality department at different points in their career, which some of those we'll get to. But
well, like Donovan said with the Striper or with Rat, consistency.
Mm-hmm.
You knew, like, if you wanted to turn somebody on to Dokken, or if they heard like In My Dreams on the radio, and they're like, well, what album is this on? Under Lock and Key. Let me go check that out. From the jump, every song is that consistency, and they're just like, okay, this is awesome. There's not a song, or the same with, like, say, let's see, Back for the Attack. If somebody heard Heaven Sent or Kiss of Death, they would go listen to the rest of the album and go, okay, yeah, I get it. There's nothing that would make you just go, oh, what are these guys trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't think there's any way where it's like, they're one of those bands where it's hard to misunderstand them. Like, you can tell what they are, you can tell what they're about. There's not really a bad way to be introduced to Dokken, because no matter what side of that band you get, or no matter what record you hear first, or whatever song you hear first, it's gonna be good. Just because the quality control with them was, in my opinion, one of the stronger ones of the genre. I think they really didn't have anything bad come out.
Yeah, I think maybe the only album where there might be some kind of way, weaving in and out is the first album, Breaking the Chains. Had a couple of songs on there that are not like Breaking the Chains. Like you heard, like, Stick to Your Guns, or I think it's Young Girls, are kind of like, but still a great album. And every album after, like Tooth and Nail, Jesus Christ,
it's ridiculous. I think with them too, it's sort of, in a way, I think it's best when a band's first album is the one where it's like, that's usually a pretty good sign if the first release was the iffy one, because that means everything's better and they just got better over time, rather than bands like we're gonna get to a few here where it's like their first couple releases were awesome, and then they just kind of
and then they slip off the rails a little bit.
Yeah.
And you can't say Dokken without mentioning two essential words: George Lynch.
Yeah.
I mean, or to Mr. Scary. Jesus Christ, that's one of the greatest instrumentals of all time.
I mean, he's one of those guitarists you don't have to be a hair metal fan to love. Like, if you're a guitar player, any guitar player respects George Lynch.
Yep.
Yeah.
Throw him where you will. That's good.
Yeah. I there's this YouTube channel that I follow called Digital Split, and this guy gets, like, stems from all these whatever songs or whatever, and he'll upload YouTube video / audio of the individual tracks, and he does a lot of Dokken, and he put Mr. Scary up, like, bass, drums, all the different guitar tracks, and I'll go back and listen to those just for fun, and even just listen to the drums or listening to the bass alone, aside from the guitar, just completely disregarding the guitar, just hearing the rhythm, the bass and the drums. At the end of it, you're like, oh my God, I almost need a cigarette after that. It's just
it was the purest case of then where every musician in those bands could play.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the earliest, like Jeff Pilson, that's one of the earliest recordings of somebody of that genre using a 5-string, because you don't hear it really in the mix, but if you listen to, like, just the bass tracks, he is all over, like, the low B string, just playing super low guttural notes, and you're like, oh wow, okay. and the whole time he is not letting up. He's just like, I mean, he's moving. I mean, that guy is what I would definitely say is an underrated bass player in the rock genre.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and everybody in that song is going, whether it's the kick drum, the bass, or George. I mean,
yeah.
I think there's no other way than essential for them. I mean, it's just, I can't.
No question.
This next one might be a little bit easier for us. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I think Jackal's very overrated, personally.
Yep, that's good. We're done with them.
Okay, cool. All right. Moving swiftly along. Next up, we got Firehouse, and I do love Firehouse.
All right. Well, then, since that's your bread and butter, let's hear your take first.
So I think Firehouse would be a good candidate for underrated because, like, they were one of those later bands that came out, like first record came out like 80, 88, 89, I think. And I feel like a lot of bands from that era kind of got the short end of the stick. I mean, we're gonna get to Warrant in a second, which I also love Warrant. And I think part of their thing is like both those bands kind of had one big hit, or they maybe got like the one cheesy hit that sort of, maybe people just like, oh, it's another hair band, like that we really need another one, right? But I think Firehouse, if you really listen to the first 3 records, more so the first 2, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's like if you hear those cuts on there, I mean, the quality stands up to a lot of the other bands on this list, and for that reason, I'd sort of put them with Enough's Enough, put them with Stryper, put them with Trickster. I think underrated.
I would agree with you, mainly because they are like I mean, you touched on that. They are one of those bands that, yeah, they put out Don't Treat Me Bad, and a lot of people latched onto that. But once they put out Love of a Lifetime, I think that overshadowed everything else. And then probably to most people, they would have been considered a one-hit wonder.
Yeah.
But
Touché.
if you go back and just listen to, I'll just say the first record, that album just fucking slams. The production on it, the songwriting, the musicianship, the vocals. I mean, incredible. And then the second album, Reach for the Sky is like one of the most baddest ass fucking songs ever.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Like, I mean, dude, you can't listen to that or All She Wrote, or you can't listen to those. And no hair metal guys be like, yeah, these aren't good. Like, they're awesome. They're just bangers,
Have you? I don't know if they're still doing it now on their current tour, but I watched some videos of Stryper from, I want to say either earlier this year or
when they cover All She Wrote.
They play All She Wrote because Perry's in the band. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That's so cool.
I saw Stryper when Donovan opened for him, and they did not, because I think it was like a live stream show, and they did like a bunch of deep cut Stryper songs. So maybe
they did like a greatest hits almost.
Yeah, so maybe they still do. That show they didn't, but I mean, I've seen Firehouse live too, and I think Firehouse just proves that Virginia is the greatest state in the country, and Northern Virginia pride. They're from Richmond. We love them. I like it. I like that you guys appreciate that band. They're great.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with underrated as well.
I like it. Drop them in there, and I'm just gonna go ahead and say I think Warrant probably goes in the same category for me. But I want to hear what you guys have to think, because they're also one of my favorites. So I'm curious where you guys fall.
I'm going with great.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Just because they were a great fucking band.
Yeah.
And even now they're awesome with Mason. I mean, have you heard that album, like Louder, Harder, Faster?
That have I heard so the album? I literally just got it on CD, and I'm trying to find it really quick so I can prove my Warrant fan, how hardcore fan I don't know. I literally just picked up that record the other day, so I love it. I think that
album is so good.
It's great. I mean, I'm a diehard for them. I think,
and they're one of those bands that is still out there, still slugging it out.
The only reason I'd say underrated over great is I feel like people hear Cherry Pie and they're like, oh, this cheesy crap, like what is this? But then, like, I mean, dude, you listen to any of Janie Lane's songwriting from those early records, like, you cannot listen to Mr. Rainmaker and be like, this is not.
Perfect example, Uncle Tom's Cabin. Like,
oh yeah,
the story that song tells
Mm-hmm.
is so. What's so awesome about it is I was in a country band about 2004 2005, and one of the songs we had on our album kind of was of the same, like it was so influential that our singer wrote a song kind of in that same storytelling vibe,
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, I mean, Uncle Tom's Cabin, it starts and stops there for me with Warrant.
Yeah. It's
Agreed.
one of my favorite hair metal songs ever. So I mean, I'd go great if that's the consensus. I'm definitely on board with that.
Yeah.
And they were such a hit with, I mean, gotta say the ladies, pure and simple.
Yep.
Oh, great band, man. Janie Lane was one of the pioneers for sure. He was killer.
Yep.
And they still, I like that you mentioned Mason, because I do love the Robert Mason stuff, and they still sound great with him too. I mean, he kills the old school catalog for sure. So I mean, on all aspects, honestly. If
that guy's such an underrated singer too, man.
Always ridiculous, still sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I think they always deserve more, but love them to death.
I had a buddy that sent me a screenshot the other day of some song he was listening to, and it was from it was a band called Big Cock, and he goes, "What is this shit?" And I was like, "You realize that's Robert Mason?" And he's like, "Oh, okay." Like, yeah. Turn around and listen to that again. And he was like, "Oh, okay." I just thought it had a stupid name. I was like, "Wait a minute." Listen to that again. Listen to the song "Bad Motherfucker."
Yeah. That's amazing. Oh yeah, Robert Mason's one of those guys. He's like, everything he touches is gold. He's a legend.
If I put together a hair metal super group, he would be the singer.
I can get behind that for sure. I can absolutely get behind that for sure. Faster Pussycat.
Overrated. I hate them.
I couldn't agree more.
Only because they were just more raunch and roll than anything.
Mm-hmm.
They really weren't good looking. It was almost like Dangerous Toys, where they were just like.
I was about to say the same thing. They kind of had that same vibe as Dangerous Toys. I like a lot of their songs, but I'm okay with putting them in the overrated category.
Yeah, I've seen them live twice. Both times I was there for other bands on the bill primarily, and I sort of wanted. I'd never really listened to him before the first time. After the first time I saw him, I kind of listened to it more. But I mean, I don't know, man. It's like you said. I just don't think there's anything super.
I will say this: their cover of "You're So Vain" is pretty top shelf, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that version of that song.
I actually like their new song they dropped last year called Nola a lot, but that's besides the point. That's pretty recent stuff. Yeah, I'm cool with overrated if that's the consensus.
Cool with me.
Cool.
Yep. Lita Ford.
Our first and looks like only female entry.
We got one more. We got Vixen later. But we'll get to that.
Oh, there it is. I see it now. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, Jesus, man. That's a tough one.
Of the two, like female fronted bands on here.
I don't want to piss off any of our female listeners.
The three girls that are listening, my mom, my grandma, and some of your wife, make sure that
yeah, we actually cover a Lita Ford song in our cover band that we have back home.
Do you really? That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, man, I like Vixen more than Lita Ford personally.
Song wise, yeah.
Yeah.
I would put Lita in the good category.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, that's a pretty safe place so that our girl listeners.
I mean, I'm not.
Kill us after this.
I wouldn't say great. Although her first album is really good, but I'm not going out of my way to track it down to my iTunes and just jam to it, you know.
Yeah.
But if it comes on, I'm like, oh hell yeah, this song rocks, you know. There's good songs on there, so I'm gonna put Lita in good. That's my vote.
Yep, definitely cool.
Good
with that.
move,
guys. This has actually been way more like pretty evenly opinionated than I thought. I'm actually very this is looking great. Like if it looks like if I made it on my own, it'd be pretty much this. So
it's remarkable that we're all together on a lot of this too. Nobody's like, well, no, that's bullshit. Fuck you.
Yeah. I think once we do maybe like a tier list in another episode of like albums by a certain band, like if we did like Rat discography tier list or like Def Leppard discography, like that might get a little bit more dicey. But this for now, we're looking good. Next one I got for you is Junkyard. It's pretty much impossible to read because it cropped very weird, but
I know one Junkyard song, so I don't really have much input on this.
I can't even categorize them. They're just so whatever they are.
I don't know any songs, and I just know that they played here at the Cobra about 6 months ago, and maybe I don't know. That probably says all that we need to know. Do we like where do they even fall?
Maybe for the sake of being hair metal, we put them in overrated. You know.
I think I'm good with that.
Yeah, kind of dirty, nasty, whatever they are, like the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, Justin, this won't apply to you as much because you're not from Nashville or you don't live here, but Donovan, I think being a legacy act that's been touring for 40 years and you're going on your tour and you're playing at the Cobra, maybe is a sign that it might be time to hang it up. But that's me personally. Ship the Cobra is a little venue in Nashville where if you look it up, the first article that comes up is about a shooting that happened there like 2 years ago. So
wonderful,
nice place.
Really stand up joint.
Yeah, facts, dude. I don't know. Then they played there like 2 years ago, so maybe leave that there. But next up's a big one, guys. Def Leppard.
Oof.
I think it's essential, but I'm open to debate on this one.
Man, I don't know what to call it.
That's a tough one for me too, because that Def Leppard is one of those bands that is like very, very influential to me as in my listening. I mean, Pyromania, I got the first two vinyl albums I got in Christmas of '83 were Eye of the Tiger and Pyromania, and I still have both of them. Like for me, God, that's a tough one because I mean, in the sense of hair metal, I don't.
It's like Bon Jovi, where it's really only the first few, you know.
Well, and if you think about it, like in terms of all aspects of hair metal, like you factor in like songwriting, like the songs about getting the girl and da 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 da. They never really had much of that, you know. They had more, like, even for like their age, like Hysteria is such a mature album.
Yeah.
In the terms of like what they wrote about. And so, I mean, I'm going to say essential just because I like what they did to influence other bands as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You would almost call it not prog rock, but more intelligent hair metal for some of it.
Yeah. It's sort of the same as like Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Yeah. Not sugar on me, but
I guess I would say essential just because if I told somebody, I would, you know, if I said here's a list of 10 if it broke down to albums, I would say Hysteria, just because it was very, just the stylistically, it was very all encompassing of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they had like, you know, like the songs that weren't as, you know, I don't really want to like, so they had something intelligent like Gods of War, but then they also turned around and did Pour Some Sugar on Me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
I mean,
I'm gonna say Essential.
yeah, I it would hurt me to do any less than great, but I think Essential is definitely the way for them because they have so much going for them. I mean, it's like you said, the songwriting. It was that they were one of those bands that I feel like a lot of people that are hair metal guys, at one point or another outgrew different bands, but I feel like it's pretty hard to outgrow Def Leppard. Just everything
Yeah,
about them is just they were kind
that
of my first band that I fell in love with, and it's I love them.
yeah, yeah.
Donovan does
Yep.
Essential for Def Leppard, Phil. Let's do it.
Yes.
All right, here's another one that I'm not really too keyed in on, guys. Madam X. I'm gonna need you guys to educate me a little bit here.
It's the drummer from Vixen's original band and Sebastian Bach's original band that he sang on the first. I don't know the first album, but he was in that band before Skid Row.
That's right.
Well, I'm gonna need to check them out after this. Then I didn't know any of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's more like almost Motorhead kind of, but yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if you call them good because the songs aren't good.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you a single song, so I don't have a dog in that fight either.
I think it just sounds like we might be putting these guys in overrated because if the songs aren't that great, then it's hard for much else about it to be anything crazy.
Yeah, and when we get to the next female band, it'll be easier to justify that.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. Madam X going in overrated, and I think I want to put the next band there too. But I want to hear you guys first because I got my statement on Motley Crue, but I'm curious what you guys have.
Go ahead, Donovan.
Motley Crue as a hair metal band. You know what? They were all things. They were the start of like Loud Fast with the first album, and then they were like more glam looking and hair metal, like literally hair metal for Shout at the Devil, and then glossier. By the time they got to Dr. Feelgood, it was such a refined machine. Like that whole 10 years, they kind of dominated everything. And for me, it'd be Essential.
Justin.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Essential too, because when you say hair metal, even somebody who doesn't know really the depth of hair metal, one of the first things they do is go, Motley Crue?
Yeah.
Right.
Just because, and granted, yes, Vince Neil is a horrible singer, but you do have one of the riff masters playing guitar. And just they had great songs.
Yeah.
I still listen to Too Fast for Love to this day. And just they
kind of had it all. They had the songs, they had the looks,
they had the attitude,
and they had the roles of, oh, Tommy's an amazing drummer. Oh, Nicky writes all these songs and he looks like friggin' amazing. Mick, he made a bunch of riffs, and then the singer was pure sex appeal. So I'm gonna go with Essential for myself.
Yeah. I can get behind that.
But they're one of those where no matter where your opinion lies, you have to agree on just they were essential. They were they're
pioneers.
They partied. I mean, they probably, if somebody were to say party like a rock star, they're probably thinking of Motley Crue.
Yeah.
I mean, they did it. They did it all.
Yeah, I'm a little. My opinion changes day to day with them, but I think just even if you're just looking at influence, they're kind of like Van Halen in that regard, where like they were the first ones kind of on the
and for them, the influence is more than just the music. It's like so the attitude, the lifestyle.
I will say this: they are one of the very few bands on this whole diagram here that when I'm walking around college, I actually still see people wearing Motley Crue shirts, and not even just like the Hot Topic, Motley Crue shirts, but like there's people wearing like stadium tour shirts where I'm like,
Mhm.
you know this kind of music, and it's, you know, they do kind of the legend of them, if you will, sort of does, it holds up because there's people, you know, at Belmont that listen to Cage the Elephant and Greta Van Fleet that know who Motley Crue is. So that's saying a lot.
Yeah.
So I like it. Essential. Next up's another stadium tour alumni from this summer. Poison.
Pretty simple, essential, all
Yeah.
of it.
Yep.
Flash, trash, looks, essential.
Yeah.
They like Motley Crue, more than Motley Crue. They put the hair in hair metal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I could put them at great just because, but that would be my own like opinions. But I would have to agree, essential.
Yeah. I think they're everything about glam. Like they're the glammiest glam band. They had it. I mean, you can't, if you look at the Look What the Cat Dragged In album cover and have never heard of glam metal before, you'd understand like what the look is completely.
You
Like,
look at it and go, man, these chicks are kind of hot.
yeah. And then you're like, oh, their names are Brett and Bobby Doll. Never mind. Like it's awesome.
And Cece.
Nah.
And, you know, yeah.
I
Ricky
love
with
it.
2 Ks, you know. I mean, yeah.
They embraced it and they still do embrace it, which I love about them. I love this band. Yeah, essential. I'm with it. And that is a statement about what we got this summer because the 3 bands that we just put in essential all just toured together, which is pretty crazy. All 3 with, for the most part, original lineups too. So that's and 2 of them had great singers. So anyway, Wasp, who also, I will want to mention this, they're playing at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, which Ship, you know about the Ryman? Yeah, that they're putting Wasp at the Ryman. So just sort of let that sink in.
I'm actually going to see Wasp in about a month. It'd be my first time. I would put them at great, and that's very opinionated just because I love Wasp. Blackie Lawless is one of those who his image and theatrics, they belie his intelligence. I mean, incredibly intelligent guy. Like, I think they should have had him when they did the PMRC thing back in the 80s. They should have had him right there with D. Snyder.
Yeah. And another thing of, hey, you want to see what this is about? Here, look at their album covers. This was the darker side, but it was.
I mean, that EP, that one song was like the spark of all that shit. I mean, the song "Fuck Like a Beast" was I would almost say the sole reason why I love bands that are not afraid to ruffle people's feathers. They're they're shit stirs. I love that. I love the shock rock, all that, the theatrics. I love all of it. I wouldn't put them essential just because of the, where the other bands are in this list, but I would absolutely put them at great, like a high great.
I can get with that because I'm a sucker for the darker hair metal stuff, and I think, they were a lot of these bands on this list. Looking at them, some of them run together, pretty well, and like they're just like, okay, like these categorize these on here. They're kind of their own thing. So I would say great.
And another band that still puts out consistently good albums. Like I listened, they had an album a few years back called Golgotha that I just stumbled upon. I was kind of going through one, I had one of those times where I'm like, oh, I haven't listened to this band. They still put out albums. Let me check something out. And I checked that album out, and I just previewed a few songs, and I was like, I'm going to buy this. And I bought it, and I still listen to it. Like, it stands up right next to any of the early stuff.
That's something too that I think is putting some of these bands in the, like, for me at least, looking at great, like I think there's really something to be said about the great and essential bands that are still putting out albums now, and that they're still doing it, because I think that really shows their abilities, that they aren't out of songs to write yet, which is one of the reasons I love Def Leppard so much too. So
they're another one of those bands that's still putting out albums, and they're not just phoning it in.
Yeah, I'd put them up there with Warrant in that case too. So I think Wasp going for great is a good take.
All right, let's see if we can sprint to the finish line on this.
All right, let's do it. Slaughter, I'm going underrated.
Huh.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Way to go.
I've been thinking about Slaughter a lot recently, so that's kind of where I'm at.
Oh man, you know what? I'd be okay with that. I would put them at good or maybe close to great, but I'd be okay with underrated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I could too. Even though they were tail end of the '80s, like them being former members from Vinnie Vincent's band, having the hair,
True,
and having the voice and the guitar riffs.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I like that. I didn't mean to throw my answer out so quick, but I was like, that's kind of where I'm at with them.
It's good. Let's sprint.
It's good.
All right, LA Guns.
LA Guns, I would, for the sake of hair metal, I would, like the others, I would, even though I love them, I love that band, I would put them at overrated. Just they fit in that junkyard, Dangerous Toys kind of. They were a little bit more raunchy.
Yeah.
You know? So,
and it wasn't about the hair because Tracy Guns was like one of the first to have like butched hair, like short with bangs.
Yeah, he's the first one that cut his hair, and the needle on the record skipped, and everybody's like, "Oh my god!" You know. I think they were hair metal in image only.
Yeah, I think for that overrated. Put them with Junkyard and those guys too. I like that.
And that's not to say they weren't great. They were an awesome band. They still are an awesome band. Just for the sake of hair metal, overrated.
Yeah. Plus, I don't know. I think they really only had like 3 songs that I would consider hair metal songs. So I think that just,
yeah,
you know, I'm with that for sure. Our second and final female contestant on here, guys, Vixen. I love Vixen, and I would definitely put them above Lita Ford.
Great.
So I'd say great. Yeah.
I'm saying I'm gonna go great.
I'm gonna go great as well. I work with them, and Roxy, being almost 60 and still she hits drums like nothing.
Yep.
But they had way better songs. They fit everything of that era, and being females was like is exactly what you would expect from a female hair metal band.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and with Lita, you just had the singer who, it was the woman up front who sang and played guitar. With Vixen, you had a full band.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You had a full band of just stellar musicians.
Absolutely. It was, you know, they were one of those things too, where I feel like with them, I think they were like an inspirational band for a lot of like, you look at Hailstorm, Evanescence, like so many bands now would probably cite Vixen as kind of a keystone for them. So I think that's for that will go great. I think if that's cool with everybody.
Yep.
Autograph, the one-hit wonder Chads that they are.
No comment or no input from me.
No input.
Yeah, I know the one song. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, they were here and then they were gone.
Yeah, I really don't think there's much else to say with them. Donovan, you gotta take a statement.
Currently, which is no original members because the bass player just died like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
I don't even know where you put them anywhere on here.
Yeah, I don't even know, man. Would you say like overrated? I mean, just
in a way.
Just the fact that they're still touring with nobody original and like
kind of seems to be the default answer, which when we have really nowhere to put them.
Yeah.
And it's because live, like currently live, they're great and they're super sweet guys. And Jimmy Bell is an amazing guitarist. He plays with House of Lords.
Oh god, there's another honorable mention. It's House of Lords.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like they're at the time when that came out, like the term wasn't defined as hair metal yet, but they were like oh, what do they look like? This isn't like outlandish, turn up the radio. Sounds like a regular 60s pop song, just a little more driving. So yeah, I wouldn't call them a hair metal band. So it'd be overrated. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. Tora.
That's I love that band, but I don't know if I would call them hair metal just because they have so much more of that Memphis blues influence to them.
Yeah.
I think they're just one of those bands that got thrown into the headbangers ball category just because they had long hair.
Yeah.
But so I would put them at good just because I love that band. I love their first two albums. But they're kind of like the Tesla and the Cinderella to me. They wouldn't hair metal and image only, but they still had some hair metal appeal. So I would say good.
I always put them and Bang Tango kind of in the same category, so I think that's fair. Donovan, you good with good for Tora?
I'm good with good.
Good with good. Word. All right, Twisted Sister.
What do you got, Donovan?
I'm gonna go with good for myself. Like it's representative. The look, even some of the songs, even they were a little grittier, but for what they were impact wise, with the hugest hits of "We're Not Gonna Take It" and "I Wanna Rock," the impact makes it so they were, not essential for me because it was too much makeup. But then they were still like so gritty and raw. So they're good. They're a good representation of that era. They're good.
They only had that particular look for one album.
Right.
It was just Stay Hungry, and then after that they ditched all the shoulder pad, and they went back to like blue jean heavy metal.
Yeah, I like good for them.
Same.
Yep. Winger.
Underrated, hands down.
Yeah, I'll just slap that right in underrated right away because.
Oh, and I'll tell for one reason and one reason only, Beavis and Butthead. Because Stewart had to wear was it the nerdy kid's name Stewart?
Yeah.
Yep.
Had the Winger shirt, and from then on they were just pigeonholed. And everybody was all over Kip Winger because of his good looks, and they were questioning whether or not he was really playing and all that. But if you go back and really listen to those fucking albums, they are fucking incredible.
Yep. And they were basically prog.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm gonna go ahead, guys, and I just gotta say Y&T go same place, underrated. They're fantastic. I think they fit in the exact same category. Never got enough attention.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot of their stuff other than Summertime Girls, so I'm fine with whatever.
The guitarist, lead singer dude is probably one of the best, like, just live guitarists. He's Rick Nielsen on steroids, just as far as he just pulls out, what was that? That wasn't part of the song, but that fits. And he can just rip, and then he sings like anything. So yep.
Underrated. Contagious Records is one of my favorite hair metal albums. Never got enough love, so I'm happy with that. Chip, Babylon AD was one of your ads, and I don't know anything about them, so I'm very curious.
Underrated. It's a toss up. It can be underrated or it can be great. Great, just because I'm a big fan of that band. Like I told you on my other interview, that's another one of those albums I can't just listen to one song. I have to hear the whole thing. So much good songwriting, so much good guitar playing, riffs, leads, all of it. But in the grand scheme of them not being well known, I would have to put them at underrated, simply because of the fact that if anybody's watching this and sees all the underrated shit, they're gonna be like, well, let me go check it out. That's one of those bands where I would have to say you need to listen to the first two Babylon AD records. The first one is essential listening, in my opinion, and the second album is stellar.
Yep. All right.
Go
Well,
with
I
it.
got my homework.
Yep, go with it.
Sweet. Europe.
Okay. I realized after I mentioned Europe in that group text that I was thinking I shouldn't have mentioned them, but I'm glad I did, because they probably deserve some recognition.
Mm-hmm.
For them, hair metal might only be the Final Countdown, or maybe even Out of This World a little bit. But if you listen to their first two albums, they are very much like vintage metal.
Mm-hmm.
Like
new wave. What is it? New wave.
Yeah,
British
the new
heavy
wave.
metal.
Yeah, I mean,
or Swedish.
If you listen to their first album, seriously, you would almost be like, "This is the same band."
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing. And then, they did Prisoners in Paradise, and then they split up. And when they got back together, their stuff now that they put out is so heavy.
Mm-hmm.
If you can find it, check out Start from the Dark.
Their first reunion one was so good.
That's where they started just like, let's tune down, way down. I mean, like there's a couple songs that are in drop B, and they're just like, the song "Gotta Have Faith" is just gnarly.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good. And John Norum is like one of my absolute favorite guitarists.
I would almost put them as essential, because they're all original members. Well, original from second album, but they grew. They started as the young kind of punk metal kids, played fast. Then they played the game and did the hair and pop songs. And then, kind of paused, reevaluated things, and came back. Like, for me, I'm one of those who grow with your artist, and they have such a career span. That's, for me, essential.
Mm-hmm.
I'm you know what? Absolutely.
I think we can get with that. They're one of the first ones I ever heard. So I think
I'm going to say essential just because there's more to them than just the Final Countdown.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Guys, we really are in the final countdown, because we got 2 left. And this next one, Justin, I know you're a little iffy on, was for Night Ranger. And I can agree that they're not exactly hair metal. So.
I want to hear yours and Donovan's take first.
Mm-hmm.
I don't put them in hair at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, like, you could, Sister Christian being, a power ballad and all, but the rest of it didn't strike like, it's not a Headbangers Ball band.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a Z-rock band. It's not one of those. They were always like a pop metal band, much like Def Leppard.
I was going to say like a Def Leppard light.
Yes. So could we put them at good?
I think that's fair, because I wouldn't put them quite in overrated, because I do, like you said, they do have some sort of crossover stuff that did get put onto Headbangers. But like, I think for what they are, I mean, they're one of my favorites of this era. And even though they're not hair metal, I think they can go for good. I think that's solid.
And another chalk in that is the guitarists, both of them, like the harmonics, the way the tapping was involved. So let's put them at good.
I like it.
And you can also credit the fact that Brad Gillis was the first Randy Rhoads replacement.
That's very true. I think they were unique too, because they had a bass player, singer. Like, that was sort of pioneering at the time. Didn't really ever happen.
Well, they were, aside from, Kiss, but Kiss being obviously way further back, they were one of the first bands of the style that had 2 different singers.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have a front man. It was of all things either the bass player or the drummer that sang.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have a like a good looking guy playing guitar and singing. It was the bass player or the drummer.
Yeah.
So they had that rare element to them. So I would put them in either good or great.
Yeah, I'm happy with either of those. Donovan, you want to?
I'm good with that. Good or great.
All right.
I mean, either or.
Well, let's
Whichever
put them in
one
great.
has the least amount, put it in there.
If we put them in good, they'll tie with how many are in great. So we'll go with that, just for
let's leave them in good, because for the sake of the songwriting, You know, they had songs that could blend in with hair metal, but most of it didn't.
Guys, the last one, Lynch Mob.
Yeah, not as essential as Dawkins.
Definitely not, but I think they're good or great for me.
I would say either great or underrated. Great just because of the fact that, I mean, like we were saying in the group chat, you can't really. Wicked Sensation is pretty much a perfect album. But I would shift underrated just for the fact that maybe that's a band that nobody's heard.
I was going to
really,
say
really doesn't know much about, and maybe they'll do some homework and go, I should check out Lynch Mob. So,
right,
that
good or
that door
underrated.
swings either way.
Yeah, sorry, great or underrated, because I mean it was Dawkins 2.0, and it gave us Robert Mason.
Yep.
I mean, even all the stuff with Oni is insanely good, and it was basically to start off, you know, Mick Brown, and you know they rotated bass players and all, but everybody wanted to play with them. Every musician was like, man, if that opens up, I don't have to worry about being the guitarist. I'll just go play with George Lynch.
Yeah.
I think for me, I wouldn't put them at great because I don't think they fall in the same category as Rat or Warrant. I think they're one of those bands that more people need to know about, where a lot of people do know about Rat and Warrant, but maybe don't know all the deep cuts. I think Lynch Mob, just not enough people know them in general. So I'd put them
That's a good selling point.
Underrated.
Yeah, underrated it is.
Well, gentlemen, there it is. There's our tier list.
There it is.
That looks good. Well, to everyone listening, thank you so much for tuning in to the first episode of Holy Deep Divers, your new favorite hair metal podcast. And I will put the link to this tier list in the description on the YouTube link. So if anyone wants to go fill this out on their own and let us know, you know, where you put the bands on here, you can go ahead and do that. And
okay, real quick, Justin, 3 honorable mentions. Go.
Hurricane.
Ooh.
House of Lords. Shit. I don't know. Those are 2 for me. I can't. I'd have to really take some time to bring in a third one, but at least those 2.
Okay.
Donovan, you got 3. Oh, is it my turn?
Well, because I asked.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Oh shoot. Skid Row, because I was an idiot and didn't put them on here. They're one of my favorites of the genre.
Yeah, just throw them up there somewhere.
Yeah. Can I go for a new hair metal band? Can I say Crazy Licks from Sweden? Because I adore them, and I'm gonna say Vince Neil solo stuff. Those are my 3.
Okay.
Donovan, you got 3 for us?
Yeah, hold on a second. I'm looking at something here. How do I?
Oh, he's on Wikipedia right now. Underrated hair metal bands.
Because immediately, Britney Fox.
Oh God, yes.
On the outskirts would be I'm trying to think of the crap. Hold on, it's coming to me. I just looked at my stuff here and I just lost it. I loved House of Lords and Hurricane, I'll tell you that right now. Because so much came out of all those bands. So much good.
Oh, I just thought of my third one.
Do it.
Rocks Gang.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
That speaking of fucking fantastic albums, that album Things You've Never Done Before is awesome. Like Red Rose and Ball and Chain. Oh man.
I'm here for that. I'm definitely here for that. Hurricane was a good call. That should have been on here.
Yeah, that's when I realized after we moved on from the who else should be added. That was when I was like, why didn't I say Hurricane? What?
Who did I say? Yeah, I said the one.
You said Brittany Fox.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pull them out. All right. Vinnie Vincent Invasion.
Oh,
Yep.
And
That's
then
fair.
to go kind of silly weird, Lillian Axe.
Ooh. Okay.
I just want to give one more special shout out here. Steel Panther. Love him or hate him. Satchel can write a freaking riff.
You really can't deny it. You just can't.
Yeah, and I mean, they do definitely pay homage to a lot of these bands in a cool way. So I even though it's a joke, I think there's something to be said for what they do. So I would say them too.
Hey, and while we're at it, Steel Dragon.
Boom.
Speaking of Rockstar. Or hey, you know what? Let me backtrack that and say Steelheart.
There you go.
Right there.
Huh. That actually does work.
Steelheart.
I think those are some good honorables. I'd even go Every Mother's Nightmare. Another little drop in there.
Oh yeah. Some fucking
right.
Tennessee sludge hair metal.
Yes, sir. Man, well that's quite the list there, guys. That's just beautiful to look at.
Absolutely.
Well, gentlemen, it's been an honor ranking these hair bands with you, and I'm sure there'll be another episode coming up pretty soon. But to everyone listening,
thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
All right. Thanks, Cadence. Bye.
Bye.